Hi, everyone. My name is Yubi Ventura. I'm a product manager and trainer at Connect Our Kids. So I am back with Cliff Venable, who is an expert search agent with Seneca Search, which is a part of the National Institute for Permanent Family Connectedness at Seneca Family of Agencies. Cliff, thank you so much for returning to share your knowledge from over 15 years of family searching.
Thanks, Yubi. Great to be here.
Awesome. So, in our first video together, you taught us how to use Facebook as a resource to find relatives and connections for children in foster care. So, family searching gets a little bit trickier when family members reside outside of the US. So, why are international searches so challenging?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Probably the main one is there are no international search databases similar to the ones in the States, like Connect Our Kids database, or the paid services, or the sort of full services like Seneca Search. The other big issue is that even if parents do show up in US databases, they tend to have a shorter or kind of a disconnected address history, so it's harder to connect up relatives. Um, and the other issue, I think, is that we don't think about if they're from another country, most of their relatives probably still live in that country. And so they're going to be difficult to find in US databases. And then another one I see, particularly with Latin American searches, is either common names or hyphenated names are more difficult to search in databases. So those are kind of the main issues why those searches are particularly challenging.
Right. So, what are some ways to potentially locate some of these family members when parents are from outside of the US?
Well, you can still use people search databases, and we last couple of years we participated in the project to try to reconnect parents and kids that were separated at the border. I did a lot of those searches, and we used people search databases, and we had some success, but they're really challenging. A couple of tips is you can search any addresses that you have in the U.S. and look for subjects that are there. Sometimes you'll find most. People that come here from another country initially are living with other relatives. So if you search those addresses manually, you can find results. Um, Another option is look for multiple records for the person. Sometimes you'll find more than one record for the parent, and maybe that second record is the one that has the relatives tied to it. And then I would say when you're doing searches, you want to search, particularly Latin American searches, you want to search um, both surnames separately and then together, because that gives you, sometimes when people come here, they may use any variations of those, particularly with multiple surnames. You can still use social network searches like Facebook. And again, you have kind of the same issue with common names. So I would say if you're searching, search all of the surnames, both surnames separately and then together. And then a little tip, sometimes it can be difficult to know if you have the right person on Facebook. And so a little tip that I use for that is if look in the friends list of the potential person you found, see if they have friends in the county, the U.S. county that you're looking at, and also friends in their home country. That's kind of a clue that that might be the right person. And I found that people that come here tend to have relatives in their home country, but also they have friends in the U.S. county that they're living in.
That's a great tip. Awesome for that. So, are there any other like outside the box resources that would be available to our users?
There are other resources beyond using people search databases. So some counties will contact the embassy for the country in question. So if it's Nigeria, you would contact the Nigerian embassy within the U.S. I think they usually write a letter and let them know that one of their foreign nationals has a kid in foster care. Sometimes they'll help you, sometimes they won't. It really kind of depends on probably the desk that you land on. Um, the other option is International Social Services is an agency that sort of facilitates this work. It does tend to be a little expensive and a lengthy process, but they do this type of work. And then if you're doing Latin American searches, there's an agency called that we work with a lot, sort of a sister agency called Find Families for Foster Kids. They're really great at Latin American searches, Mexico, Central South America, even Puerto Rico, and I think even they even do some work in Cuba. and they're really good at this work. It does take longer, and there's a higher expense to it, but they're a really good agencies. They partially offset the cost by accepting donations, so they're able to provide this at a lower cost than it would actually cost them to do it, because it's really kind of an on-the-ground kind of process.
While we're talking about international searches, I myself was born outside of the US, and my whole family was born outside of the US. So I've had some luck using some ancestry sites to find connections, to relatives that are still living overseas. In your experience, do you find ancestry websites useful when conducting international searches?
I think if you have experience doing that, particularly personal experience in researching that, you can find some really good information, and you can certainly trace back from deceased relatives to find living relatives if you have some experience in that. I believe Connect Our Kids has a new resource for that also that you can download into your search results. So even though we don't use that a lot, I think if you have personal experience doing it in some skill set, it's certainly worth a shot.
Absolutely. So we have a family search integration now in our Family Connections tool that will allow you to access ancestry and historical information about families. So definitely, if you're using Family Connections, give that a shot. It never hurts to just plug in someone's name and see what kind of information you find. And then you can always plug that information back into People Search to find maybe other potential living relatives based on that name.
Definitely. Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you so much, Cliff. So do you have any final thoughts on international searches?
My final thoughts would be that not to get frustrated when you're doing these kind of searches. I do this all day long, and these are by far the most difficult searches that I have. They're very frustrating, and they're certainly really hard to find, particularly just using People Search databases. So if you're having trouble, you're not alone. But I think if you use some of these resources we mentioned, you certainly can have some success in locating those family members.
Yes, absolutely. Don't give up. That's the motto. So thank you so much, Cliff, for sharing your tips and your tricks for conducting international searches. This has been really helpful information, and it's always a pleasure to learn more from you.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
You can learn more about Seneca Search at www.familypermanency.org under Seneca Search Services. Or you can contact Cliff directly at cliff_venable@senecacenter.org. You can also request a Seneca search within Family Connections by navigating to the Search tab of the person you would like to search. Please note this is a paid service. Connect Our Kids has worked with Seneca Search to ensure that Seneca Search results are easily importable into Family Connections, so any new connections identified through this search can be easily added to a case or workspace.